What are some things you like to do with Nathan?
We love to lay down and watch movies. We play Legos.
It was a good day when we met Selena Lopez in south central Los Angeles. Soon to be married, she was about to get the keys to her first real home. 3 years ago, she was in a very different place.
I struggled with substance abuse, which led me to my incarceration. I was in and out of county jail for about a year.
Like 4 out of 5 American women who go to jail, Lopez is a mother. Her 3-year-old son, Nathan, was taken away from her by social services when she was jailed.
It broke me. Being sent to jail and having them taken away from me pushed me into my addiction harder than I ever would have thought. I did a couple of times for the Grand Theft Auto.
God bless you. God bless you too.
Her incarceration story is far from unusual. She's one of 2.5 million women who go to jail in America every year. Jail is usually locally run confinement for pre-trial custody and short-term sentences. That's the theory at least, but jail terms can often turn out to be long too, even multiple years. And there's an under-acknowledged fact about jails. While the male population has decreased since 2008, the female population has stayed about the same. The result being that women now comprise a higher percentage of the overall jail population.
We're seeing this big divergence between men and women.
Olive Liu, along with colleague Jacob Kang Brown at the Vera Institute of Justice in New York, has studied the changing gender makeup in the nation's jails. They point to women's lower incomes as one roadblock to affording bail, which can lead to an overcrowded system.
Women, compared to men, are much more likely to be unemployed at the time they are sent to jail, and their median incomes are about 30% lower than men who are sent to jail.
The role women's relative poverty can play is all too familiar to Susan Burton. She runs the house where Lopez got her fresh start in life, and Burton herself was in both jail and prison during the 1980s. She served time for drug-related offenses after her son was killed in a car accident. It wasn't until she went to a treatment facility that she got the help she needed. Because the other one's this way?
Yes, it's right here.
She has built a network of 8 re-entry homes called A New Way of Life. She has helped hundreds of once incarcerated women to get access to education, jobs, and child custody legal services.
They are incarcerated for crimes of poverty, like theft, like maybe writing a bad check on a bad account that they don't have the money in, and that becomes a fraud. They languish in that jail because they can't make bail. Some of them want to get back to their children, so many times they'll just plead guilty because they want to have time served and get out.
With the higher proportion of women serving time, authorities across the country have decided to simply create more jail space. Billings, Montana has recently finished building a new 148-bed women's jail. Lauderdale County, Alabama is spending about $1.5 million to convert a storage building into a women's jail. Portage County, Ohio is creating new cells for over 100 women in a $21 million expansion project. Los Angeles County has the distinction of running the biggest women's jail in the United States. Sheriff's Department Lieutenant David Petruccelli gave us a tour.
We're a little over 2,100.
And this place was not built for that kind of population?
No, it wasn't built for that population. So the buildings are not built to facilitate all of the things that we need to do now as a modern law enforcement agency.
We overpopulate them, triple bunks in gym areas, bunks in day room areas. So I think we're going about, what we do really, really backwards.
The state of California allocated $100 million to LA County for building a whole new women's correctional facility. But local activists said the answer didn't lie in creating new jail space.
I am statewide coordinator for Californians United for a Responsible Budget, otherwise known as CURB.
CURB's goal, says Amber Rose Howard, is to dismantle what she calls the state's prison industrial complex and reduce its number of jails and prisons. She showed us around CURB's offices, which were once a former juvenile court building.
It's a locked-in holding cell. There's a toilet, a phone, a sink.
What's it like working in a place with this as a facility?
It's creepy, but it's also, I think, inspirational, because to know that this was formerly a place where folks got sent to jail and prison, and now it's a justice center.
Howard's mission was activated by being sent to jail herself at a young age. She was still in high school, on track for college when she was arrested. We're not naming the charges because her criminal record has since been officially expunged. Her experience made her especially concerned about inmates' mental health, which studies show is more seriously affected among jailed women than men.
And let me tell you, if you don't already have struggles with mental wellness, you're definitely going to get some mental health issues when you're locked into a cage, when you're shackled at your wrists and at your ankles, when you're made to pull your pants down and cough and squat in front of several sheriffs at a time.
Howard and other activists opposed LA County's plans to convert a former immigrant detention center into a new women's jail. And earlier this year, the County Board of Supervisors changed their minds about creating the new facility.
And so we blew it up. That's the good news. The bad news is we don't know what we're going to replace it with yet, honestly.
Like many other politicians and administrators, County Supervisor Sheila Kuhl would, in an ideal world, have very few women ever sent to jail. But the current women's facility remains insufficient, and the county is again looking for a suitable location.
So we're trying to negotiate our way through that and maybe find a county facility that's already being used for incarceration that could be redone as a modern, I want to use the word nurturing, jail, if there is such a thing, for women. So I think there's a lot we can do in terms of identifying the needs of women where they're different from men. Mental health needs, physical health needs. They need trauma-informed care. There need to be classes, there need to be things to do, there need to be these playwriting groups or art or job training of some kind.
Here in the existing women's jail, the Sheriff's Department practices what it calls education-based incarceration. It includes schooling that's partly scholastic and partly training inmates in life skills and for potential jobs on the outside.
Beauty school is a vocational program. We take some of the ladies, they train with a person who is certified in that field, and they teach them how to cut hair. Gives them a skill set that they can market themselves with when they leave. The same thing with the culinary program that we have here. We're going to be starting up a computer lab very soon. We have a sewing program that's very productive. They cover a myriad of subjects, from parenting to gender responsive and therapeutic programs.
That term, gender responsive, has been gaining currency in the world of incarceration, meaning efforts by correctional institutions to provide for needs that are specific to women.
Gender responsive systems, when I hear that term, it makes my skin crawl. My reaction to that is no, we don't need gender responsive jails. We need resources in our communities. We don't need to lock women up in order to give them the things that they need in order to prosper and reach their fullest potential.
I started feeling that I belong and that I mattered.
Selena Lopez is an example of how resources in the community can help. Susan Burton's reentry program gave her educational support as well as the legal assistance to get her son back.
And he's been home now a year, and it's been amazing. I have been able to connect that bond that I had broke because I was in jail. Having somebody believing in me and investing in me is what helped me. So I got my high school diploma in 6 months, which was something that really surprised me because I dropped out 9th grade.
Susan Burton remains convinced that jail inmates' needs can only be met outside of jail.
I'd like to see people being able to sleep in a real bed instead of a bunk bed they call a coffin. There's a lot of things that I'd like to see, but we can start with alternatives to incarceration, pre-trial releases, investments in our school systems, and investments in our communities.